Welcome to this introductory screencast for A-Level Sociology Component 1. And in this introductory video, we're going to take a look at this key question. What is sociology? Okay, first thing that I want you to do is to watch a short video clip that I'll start in a moment. It's actually a video that's an advertisement for the mobile phone company Orange. But I want you to watch that video clip and think about how it might relate to the question that you can see on the screen. What is sociology? So watch the video clip, then perhaps hit the pause button and write down your own definition of what you think sociology is. Here's the video clip.
I am my mum and my sister. I am my best friend Mike, who I've known since school. I am Kate, who's still somewhere in Thailand. I'm all the girls I've ever kissed, and the girls I will. I am the teacher that failed me, and the one that spurred me on. I am my bosses, and every one of my friends. I'm a bloke I'll meet travelling, who'll teach me the guitar. I am the places I'll go to with mates, and the jokes I'll share with them. I am the people who put me down, and the ones who pick me up. I am who I am, because of everyone. Orange.
So you might want to compare your definition with my definition of sociology. So I've defined sociology as the study of how society is organised and how we experience life. So it's a subject that's concerned with some really interesting social issues such as the distribution of power, poverty, inequality, crime, deviance. These are the types of social issues that make sociology such an interesting subject. So what does it mean to think like a sociologist? Well, the famous American academic C. Wright Mills argued that the key to becoming a good sociologist was to develop what he called a sociological imagination. So I'm going to play you another short video clip, and whilst you're watching the video, if you can jot down a couple of things for me. If you can firstly make a note of what C. Wright Mills meant by the sociological imagination. And secondly, you're going to hear about a girl called Alison and about her sadness or depression. And what I'd like you to jot down is how we can relate that personal issue of depression to the wider society that Alison is a part of. Okay, here's the video clip.
Sociology is usually described as the study of societies, how societies work and change. This is true, but it only tells part of the story. Sociology is also about individuals and the relationship between individuals and societies, how the societies in which we live shape our lives. The famous American sociologist C. Wright Mills argued that making links between individuals and societies involves developing what he called a sociological imagination. What Mills meant by a sociological imagination was the ability to make links between the personal and the public. That is, between our experiences as individuals and wider social processes. He argued this involved doing three things. First, identifying the distinct characteristics of the society in question. Second, looking at its place in history and how it's changing. And third, looking at the kinds of individuals who live in this society. In sociology, the best way of showing you understand a general or abstract idea like this is to give an example. So that's what we'll do here.
4 months ago, Alison was diagnosed with depression.
I was very quiet and spent most of the time by myself, and if I didn't make it into college, I'd just find that the whole day would go and I'd just be crying all the time. So I went along to the doctor and he put me on some antidepressants.
Her depression is a personal trouble, but a sociological imagination teaches us to stand back and take a wider view. For a start, Alison's not alone in taking her problems to a doctor. In modern societies, we've been persuaded that doctors can cure unhappiness. And last year in Britain, they wrote over 30 million prescriptions for antidepressants. That's tablets to cheer us up. But it's not just sadness that's become a medical problem. In modern societies, we've come to see things like stress, worry, aggression, gambling, eating too much or eating too little as diseases. And sociologists use the term medicalisation to describe this process where more and more aspects of everyday life come to be seen as medical conditions, to be managed and treated for us by doctors and other experts.
Medicalisation doesn't just happen. The more people are labelled with some sort of disorder, the higher the profits of the drugs companies, and the more work there is for counsellors and psychotherapists and others offering cures for all life's problems. So medicalisation is good for them, but is it good for us?
So for Alison, her sadness was what Mills called a personal trouble. But by linking her experiences to wider processes of social change, we get a very different view. A view that raises different questions. For example, why do so many people now take their life problems to doctors and other experts? What does this tell us about society? And is seeing our inability to manage our lives as diseases the sign of a more enlightened and compassionate society? Or should we be taking more responsibility for actions? And while the pharmaceutical companies certainly benefit from medicalisation, do we? It's not our aim to discuss these questions here. Rather, it's been to show how using a sociological imagination can give us a different perspective on something, a view that's very different from merely looking at the personal or the individual. In one way or another, all sociology does this. It places individual behaviour into social contexts. And while it's very unlikely the examiners will ever ask you a direct question on the sociological imagination, once you understand what it is, you can bring it into almost any question you're asked. And that's not a bad deal.
So for C. Wright Mills, developing a sociological imagination was about linking personal issues to public issues. Or to put it another way, it's about looking at the relationship between human activity and wider social forces, and then the impact that these wider social forces have on opportunities for individuals and social groups, disadvantages, the impact that these things have on our self-identity, and the way in which these wider social forces influence the relationship that we have with other people and our larger social environment. So the sociological imagination is all about linking the individual to wider social forces. And all that we mean by social forces are anything really that humans have created that then influence or pressure people to interact or behave in particular ways. So social forces encompasses things like a shared language, the ideas and meanings that make up the culture, the laws that are in existence, the technology that's available to people within a society, and the range of social institutions that you find within a particular social order. So how can we use the case study of Alison's depression to highlight the sociological imagination? Well, one thing that's interesting to note is that the concept of depression is a relatively new idea. So if we go back and look at pre-modern society, depression as a medical illness wasn't really a concept that people would have recognised. So there was obviously sadness, but that sadness would have been dealt with perhaps through the family or perhaps through religious organisations. The fact that we now recognise depression as an illness or a disease perhaps reflects the way in which more and more aspects of our social lives have become medicalised. And sociologists use the term medicalisation to describe this tendency for an increasing number of areas of social life to become subject to medical classification and treatment. Okay, I'm going to use one other example to highlight the sociological imagination, and the example that we're going to focus on is the example of baby names, which I guess most people would argue is simply a personal, private decision made by parents. But I'm going to suggest that there are wider social forces that actually influence the decisions that parents make about this. Okay, here we can see the top 25 baby names in the UK for girls, okay, and the year is 1997. And these were the most popular names for boys in the same year. Now my full Christian name, Stephen, is a name that has fallen out of fashion. So this is the popularity of the name Stephen over time. And you can see that when I was born in the early 1970s, my parents were quite conformist, okay? Stephen was in the top 10 names for baby boys. But since that period, we've seen a decline in the popularity of Stephen. And in 2011, the name Stephen didn't even make the top 100 baby names for boys. However, if we look at the popularity of Jack, which was the most popular boy's name in 1997, we see that Jack was quite a popular name in the early part of the 20th century. Then it fell out of fashion and became a name that wasn't really used very much at all. But as the name Stephen started to decline in popularity, over the same period we see an increasing number of parents use the name Jack for their baby boys, and actually for some period now Jack has been one of the most common names given to baby boys. Now, the reason that this is interesting from a sociological perspective is there are clear patterns, okay, and these patterns often endure over time. And this is always a big clue for sociologists. If you look at any aspect of behaviour or decision making and you find that when you stand back and look at the population as a whole, that there are clear patterns that endure over time, that's normally a big clue that this isn't simply about individuals making private decisions, that there are likely to be wider social forces at work. And here you've got the top 20 names for boys and girls in the year 2012, and we can see with the boys' names that Jack has actually now gone down to number 2, and Harry in 2012 was the most popular boy's name. And there are probably a number of important social reasons that can help us explain the popularity of a name like Harry. For example, we might focus on the media and the depictions of key celebrities or members of the royal family. Now, there are lots of other social forces apart from the media that could explain the popularity of certain baby names. One interesting issue that's explored in this book, Freakonomics, is the tendency for black Americans to give their children more unique and different names compared to white Americans who tend to be more conventional. If you go back to the 1950s and the early 1960s, the names given to black American babies and white American babies were pretty similar. But you begin to get differences emerging in the late 1960s, and this is probably in large part due to the important political and social movements that emerged in the 1960s. So the Civil Rights Movement, the Black Power movement that changed the consciousness of many black Americans. And a really good example of this and the kind of significance of a name politically and culturally would be Muhammad Ali, who of course was originally called Cassius Clay, and he rejected his original name because he regarded it as a legacy of the slave era. Okay, let's just stick with America for a moment, okay? Hit the pause button and just have a look at the data that you've got in front of you. Now, one of the things that you might have noticed is that in 1907, if we look at the most popular names, let's say for boys, we can see that the name John was a really popular name, so nearly 5.7% of all of the baby boys born in 1907 were given the name John. If we compare that to the most popular name in 2007, 100 years later, which was Jacob, we can see that although Jacob was the most popular name, it wasn't anywhere near as popular as John was 100 years earlier. And this is interesting from the point of view of a sociologist, because this maybe suggests that the values of American culture have undergone quite a lot of change in the last 100 years. The fact that there seems to be a lot more diversity now in baby names for both boys and girls maybe suggests that one of the values that's become much more important in America now is the value that is attached to things like individuality and uniqueness, that this seems to be a more important feature of American culture than it was 100 years previously.